Hey everybody, John Noto here. You don't really know who I am, and I don't really know who you are either, but this is the beginning of what might be a new series of mine. I like to read books, I like to watch all the movies based on that book, and then I like to make a little comparison of them. So, and this is, unless if I change my mind or unless if I forget. Now, the book that I just read right here was The Jungle Book. This is written by Rudyard Kipling way, way back in the 1800s, and there's actually two of them. There's the Jungle Book and the second Jungle Book. I haven't read the second Jungle Book yet, but just my brief thoughts on the first book, which these thoughts are obviously going to be in how it compares to the original Disney movie, and I guess its remake as well. There's no King Louie. They sing, but the songs are a little bit hard to follow, and it's quite violent. Another thing that I didn't expect was that there are 4 or 5 chapters after Mowgli's story is done that actually don't involve Mowgli. One of them involves an elephant, another one involves a seal, another one involves a horse, and then one of them actually involves a mongoose whose name is Rikki Tikki Tavi, and that ended up being my favorite chapter out of all of them, which was really unexpected. Now, the two versions of the Jungle Book that I watched was the original 1942 movie, which I'm not sure if it was originally in black and white or if it became colorized at some point, but I watched the version that was in color. And then I also watched the very recent Andy Serkis version from 2018. Andy Serkis's version, from what I'm going to guess from me watching all these other versions in the future, is probably the most accurate to the book. And it kind of strives in a way to be the not Disney film. Much like it's also, both of these versions do not contain a King Louie, whereas a lot of other versions try to work that in because they were made by Disney one way or another. And there's a few Disney movies based on the Jungle Book. Now, Andy Serkis's version used a lot of real life locations, which surprised me. I thought he was going to be the CGI guy. I thought he was going to go nuts with everything being digital, which the animals certainly were, and they were very expressive in his version. He wasn't going for realism, he was going for expression, but he shot in a lot of real world environments, and that looked great. And he also had no problem including a lot of the human element, specifically when Mowgli ends up in a village. Now, going to the 1942 version, this one starts with Mowgli being much older. They try to get past him being a child, and it starts with him getting back to the village and really going from there. I think that was a part of the budget limitations of the 1942 version. For one thing, they wanted to go with an adult Mowgli just because an adult actor is 1,000 times easier to work with. This actor they had, I believe it's pronounced Sabu, he was obviously a guy who could work with animals, do all the stunts, really portray this animal boy from the jungle, and get right into that. So they kind of imply that he's 13 years old. They say 12 years later, when they get past the baby scene. The actor's got to be 18, 20, probably even in his mid 20s. I'll look into that. These are very, very quick initial thoughts after watching the two movies. They get right to him being at the village. They have mostly the human element, but when it comes to the animals, other than crocodiles and snakes, which were animatronic, which works because they're the least expressive of the animals, they used real animals for everything. And these are probably animals taken from the zoo, and I don't want to know what they actually did to the animals to get them to do the things that they needed to do. I'm not going to look into that. I'm not going to write a commentary on that. The movie is in the past. So the movie clearly had some budget limitations, but clearly, wanted to do the animal in the jungle thing, and they went all the way with it. You really get all of the animals, and what I thought was a very interesting fight with Shere Khan. He actually gets Kaa to team up with him, and he leads Shere Khan into an ambush, and Kaa actually helps him fight Shere Khan once he leads him into the water. Now, in the first Jungle Book, the book, it doesn't play out that way. Kaa is an ally in the book, but he actually teams up with Bagheera and Baloo when they go to rescue Mowgli from the Monkey Kingdom. In Andy Serkis's movie, when Mowgli is rescued from the Monkey Kingdom, they do it very accurate to the book. It's Bagheera, Baloo, and Kaa showing up later, but it's a bit interesting because they don't do the introduction to Kaa. They don't have the scene where Bagheera and Baloo say, Kaa, we need your help. Kaa just shows up out of nowhere, and the audience is left to figure out what's Kaa doing here? What's this snake? Well, if you don't know who Kaa is, if you haven't seen the Disney version, what's this snake doing here? Is snake friend or foe? Andy Serkis also doesn't really give you a very clear cut answer as to what Kaa's role in all of this. It's very much up to you. And if you pay attention to the voice cast, you also know that Kaa is the person doing the narration at the beginning of the film in Andy Serkis's movie. Interesting because this was Cate Blanchett who also did the narration at the beginning of Lord of the Rings. And my first thought at the beginning of Andy Serkis's Jungle Book movie was, oh my god, I can't stand this British accent opening narration where they try to make everything seem ancient and epic. They've been doing this since the Lord of the Rings. And I said this before realizing, oh, it's Cate Blanchett literally doing the thing she did from the Lord of the Rings. So I thought that was funny when I found that out. Anyway, those are my initial thoughts on The Jungle Book, the first book, and the first two movies that I watched. In the future, I intend to watch all of the Jungle Book movies, probably not all those kids' TV shows or cartoons. I'll skip out on some of them. I intend to watch all of the movies, read the second Jungle Book. From there, I'll give you a comprehensive comparison of how they stack up next to the book and which ones I think are the best. And I'll be sure to include my opinions on Rikki Tikki Tavi, which I just found out there is a cartoon based on Rikki Tikki Tavi, and since I'm his biggest fan right now, I can't wait to watch it.